This one is aftermath of the 15 biggest explosions ever caught on camera. Okay, okay, okay. I want to see this. This is by Riddle.
This explosion triggered a real earthquake. This is a
Huh?
second Hiroshima you've never heard of. And this blob of light can completely destroy not only Earth, but the whole solar system in addition. From faraway parts of our planet to faraway corners of space, get ready to see the most powerful and terrifying explosions ever caught on camera.
I want to see this. This is super interesting to me. Because I've never seen an explosion in my life. And I'm afraid to.
Accidental
I don't want to see an
detonations are always
explosion.
unexpected and therefore one of the most devastating.
Well, I guess
Residents
fireworks
of
are
this
explosions. I've
Mexican
seen
city of
fireworks.
Tultepec have spent ages producing a thing without which we can't imagine any big celebration. No, unfortunately, that's
By the way, I have a fear of fireworks because when I was a kid, during New Year, our neighbors and my family and extended family, like we were celebrating New Year's out in the street, and then people were lighting up fireworks, and one of our neighbors, I guess, fucked up. He messed up one firework, and it flew towards me, and it almost headshot me. It whizzed so close. I felt it in my hair, and then it went up and it exploded. And ever since then, I was afraid of fireworks. I became afraid of fireworks because I almost got headshot by one.
not tequila. On December the 20th, 2016, at the
San
San
Pablito.
Pablito market, a young seller left for lunch while the goods for sale kept lying under the sun. In any other case, they would have just started to rot without causing a catastrophe. But the thing is,
the
for the last 200 years, the people of Tultepec have been living off fireworks production. On that fateful day, around 300 tons of pyrotechnics went up all at once. 40 people died at the site and more than 80 got injured. The explosion was so massive that it completely leveled the entire market. It took 2 years to rebuild it. Local officials claim that after that fatal negligence, the sellers treat their goods and how they're stored with much greater care. But who can guarantee there'll never be another horrible fireworks tragedy in Tultepec?
Because people just left them out in the sun, and so it got hot and it exploded. Is that what happened? It killed 40 people. Holy shit. It's usually accidents, isn't it?
Residents of Lac Mégantic, Canada didn't break a single safety rule and still were attacked by a fire monster. And that's not a figure of speech. On July the 6th, 2013, at around 1 a.m., the town suddenly heard a loud blast that sent a giant fireball sweeping through the streets. It was 3 times larger than the tallest central buildings, and its heat could be felt as far as 2 kilometers away. People were jumping from the windows, desperately trying to escape.
That's so scary.
The monster reached the town's sewers. Pillars of fire began erupting out of the storm drains. A really apocalyptic picture.
This reminds me of the incident where, I mean, it's nothing like this. It's extremely small like this. There was an incident where one of our cars just burned in the middle of the night. It just started burning from within. We had a van that just burned, and we had to push it out of the garage while it was burning. And by the time the fire department got there, us and our neighbors were able to put out the fire already. But that was crazy. That was scary. Because out of nowhere, in our garage, the car just burned. If my mom didn't notice the smell of smoke, maybe the entire house would have burned and we might have died because it happened at midnight. That was crazy.
Firefighters managed to get close to the disaster site only 20 hours later, and they had to replace each other every 15 minutes because of the heat and toxic
That's
fumes.
so
When
much.
they
What
finally
burned out?
defeated the fire monster, 47 locals were found killed.
What was
and
the
whole
cause?
city center was practically destroyed. But what happened there?
Yeah.
It turned out that by some incredible consequence, the fire monster sprang to life because of a regular freight train. The lead locomotive had been having mechanical issues that had been just recently fixed. However, the maintenance team had used epoxy-like material that lacked the required durability. As a result, oil
It
had
heated
begun to
up.
accumulate in the body of the centrifugal compressor, and that continued for 7 months until it
7
finally
months.
overheated. Any train is bound to catch fire in this case, but on top of that, on the night of July the 6th, the tank cars were carrying crude oil. Its
Oh,
release and explosion
it was just-
produced the giant fireball that disfigured the town.
It was just legitimately Final Destination. Like everything bad that could happen just happened like that.
Of Lac Mégantic. Just 1 month after the tragedy, the company that owned the rail line filed for bankruptcy. But
Yeah, you
sometimes
burned the fucking
accidental explosions
city.
happen to be so massive that the people responsible for them don't get away so easily. In 2016, Chinese authorities arrested more than 50 Tianjin port executives and accused them of corruption and power abuse. Meanwhile, the local warehouse chief was sentenced to death. These are the consequences of human negligence that caused a real earthquake. Late in the evening of August the 12th, 2015,
That's a lot of cars.
local emergency service received a call reporting a major fire that had occurred in one of the port warehouses. The firefighters rushed to the scene immediately. However, it soon became clear that they were totally powerless. The fire area was way too huge, but the main and worst surprise was only about to happen. At 11:30 local time, 2 tremendous explosions rocked the port. Every living being within a kilometer died immediately, and the shockwave tore open windows and ceilings 6 kilometers away from the blast.
What the fuck was that? A nuke? Well, it's way too small for a nuke, but holy shit. That's a kilometer. 1 kilometer radius or diameter. I don't know. That's a huge area. And it affected up to 6. What was there?
Site. More than 200 people were killed. More than 12,000 cars were destroyed. China's national
12,000
earthquake
cars.
network even registered these explosions as magnitude 2.5 and magnitude 3 earthquakes. Their energy was equivalent to 27 tons of TNT, which is more than the explosive force of the Fat Man, the bomb that had been dropped
Oh, it is
on
like the nuke.
Nagasaki.
It is like a
All of
nuke.
this occurred because of containers with ammonium nitrate, a fertilizer heavily used in
For bread.
production. The investigation later revealed that the storage temperature in the warehouse had been a few tens of degrees over the acceptable limit. So this scandalous neglect finally led to their unavoidable detonation. The port of Tianjin was reconstructed.
It exploded in the port. I feel like a lot of these cases are just like the first case is due to poor storage, and this one's also due to poor storage.
In just 6 months. But then, 5 years later, a strikingly similar thing happened in Beirut, Lebanon. This time, an ammonia nitrate blast triggered
Ammonium
a
again.
3.5 earthquake.
Ooh.
It killed at least 210 people and made homeless around 300,000 more.
What the
subsequent
fuck was
protests
that?
forced Lebanon's government to resign. But if humans are careless enough to let such dreadful explosions happen, what are they capable of when they want to blow something up deliberately?
What is the logic in storing something that is explosive and putting it all in one spot? Why do people do that? Like there should be a limit, you know?
Nuclear explosions are scarier and more
Boom.
devastating than any many other bangs he
That's
could
a
think
ship.
of. On August the 6th, 1945, one of them destroyed the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The mushroom cloud rose to a height of 7 kilometers,
boy.
which is just a bit lower than Mount Everest. 80,000 people died in an instant. Some of them disappeared without a trace and left only nuclear shadows, body silhouettes forever etched into the city's
That's
surfaces.
crazy.
3 days later, the city of Nagasaki was bombed as well. That time, the mushroom cloud reached 9
Fat Man
kilometers
is
into the sky.
stronger.
The number of citizens who died from injuries and radiation sickness exceeded 140,000 people. These horrible explosions pushed Imperial Japan to surrender to the United States in the Second World War.
Yeah,
However,
because your
Little Boy and
people
Fat
are
Man
literally gonna
actually
die
ranked
for
among
generations to come.
low-yield nukes. Their explosive force was 15 and 21 kilotons of TNT respectively. The next bomb generation was carrying megatons.
The one they launched into the Pacific, I think. They tested into the Pacific are like, what was that, like 1,000 times stronger than Fat Man, I think.
These are thermonuclear devices where atomic explosives are needed to create a fission chain reaction in the second part of the bomb, which repeatedly increases its overall destructive
So
power.
it explodes and then it
American
explodes
scientists
again?
chose to test this kind of weapon at a safe distance from their own territories. It went to Pacific atolls such as Eniwetok. Little did they know that the consequences would be much worse than expected. On November the 1st, 1952, the military detonated the first thermonuclear device created by the United States.
Thermonuclear
It was
device.
probably genuinely frightening to watch 10 megatons released into the atmosphere. The mushroom cloud rose to 37 kilometers above the ground, which is 4 times higher than the cloud in Nagasaki or Mount Everest.
Why?
The blast drowned one of the atolls, while radioactive fallout spread over 56 kilometers around. The samples
GG.
received after the explosion confirmed
Everybody's
the existence
nuclear.
of 2 new chemical elements, einsteinium and fermium. This result inspired the military and encouraged them to go on. But the
Everyone's
next time,
radiated now.
They made a grave mistake. The first test, codenamed
Castle Bravo.
was scheduled for March the 1st, 1954.
This was the one they dropped in Bikini and it hit a Japanese vessel, I think, or a Japanese vessel was caught in the explosion and it triggered protests from Japan, if I remember correctly, from that one video that I watched.
Nobody could even imagine that an explosion in the middle of the vast ocean would be later dubbed a second Hiroshima. But why? The Castle Bravo nuclear device was supposed to be less powerful than the Ivy Mike bomb and have an explosive yield of fewer than 6 megatons. But the developers badly miscalculated. The blast was 2.5 times more powerful and yielded 15
It was
megatons of
way
TNT.
more
The mushroom
powerful. What the
cloud set
fuck?
a new absolute record, almost 45 kilometers high. And the fallout coming from ruined coral reefs chaotically traveled hundreds of kilometers around, far beyond the test site. It hit 23 crew members aboard the Daigo Fukuryu Maru,
There it
Japanese
is.
tuna fishing boat. All of the fishermen suffered from acute radiation sickness, and one of them eventually died. That's
Yeah,
why
and
the
the fishes
Japanese
become
press called the
radiated.
Castle Bravo test a second Hiroshima. The U.S. government had to pay the victims $15 million in compensation. However, American scientists not only continued with the nuclear tests, but also decided to detonate another bomb 2 months after the tragic event. The fact that the new
They
device
just never
was
learn.
similar to Castle Bravo in terms of its yield didn't stop anyone. And even though Castle Yankee turned out to be not so enormous and yielded only 13.5 megatons of TNT, it surprised its creators with other unexpected problems. 4 days
What?
after the detonation, it began to rain radioactive fallout on some parts of North America.
They
Mexico
fucked
City was
themselves.
affected the most. even though the capital lies 15,000 kilometers away from the test area. In the following years, local hospitals recorded a high incidence of cancer.
Did they not think that the nuclear fallout would go around the world, given that they're affecting so much of the ecosystem? Like they're just spreading the nuclear radiation everywhere, to the sea, to the animals, to the land, to the air. And they didn't think air circulates. And they didn't think it would go back to the United States. I guess they didn't, because that's the reason why the bomb tests were so far away from the US mainland, I guess.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the planet, the Soviet Union closely followed these advances and firmly decided to beat Americans in the nuclear arms race. On October the 30th,
what did Russia do?
The USSR military forces conducted a test of the most powerful atomic weapon in history. Dropped on the Arctic island of Novaya Zemlya, it was named the Tsar Bomba and yielded 58.5 megatons of explosive energy. That's like 70 Fat Man bombs going off above Nagasaki. Its mushroom cloud rose to an altitude of 67 kilometers. Detonations of Fat Man and Little Boy simply fade into the background. The cap of this devil's mushroom covered 7,000 square kilometers.
So Russia has the biggest bomb.
This territory could easily fit Guangzhou, one of the biggest metropolitan areas of China. The Tsar Bomba explosion was visible even from Norway, Greenland, and Alaska, and the shockwave it produced circled the globe 3 times. That day fully proved the Soviet nuclear capacity and showed that there's almost no upper limit to the violent power of such weapons. For this reason, despite the Cold War still raging,
if a nuclear war really does happen, no one's gonna survive. Like, the world will be gone. The world will be destroyed. No one's gonna survive. It's crazy. And even if people survive, the world would be so radiated that they die anyway, only slower.
The world states with nukes in their possession soon agreed to ban most of these tests. But even the largest human-made explosions are nothing compared to what nature can come up with.
That is wild.
The universe, to be exact.
The sun. Solar flares.
Breathtaking blasts happen pretty close to Earth, which is why our telescopes keep detecting them every now and then. Jupiter impresses skywatchers not only with its legendary
Great Red
Storm, spot, but also by showing them traces of brutal space attacks. By pure luck, one of them was captured by Japanese astronomers in 2021. At first glance, this flash
asteroid
seems
strike
incredibly tiny, but don't forget that the diameter of Jupiter is 11 times bigger than that of Earth, meaning that this little thing is nearly the size of our planet. Its temperature reached 8,000 degrees Celsius, which is hotter than the sun's surface, and for a couple of seconds, the flash itself was 300 times brighter than our star. This memorable performance was delivered by an asteroid no more than 30 meters in diameter, a typical
30 meters
on Jupiter. In 2009, astronomers filmed a half-kilometer asteroid crashing into the planet. Nothing special, just an explosion equivalent to 5
That's a
billion
smiley
tons
face, look.
diameter. A typical Monday on Jupiter. In 2009, astronomers filmed a half-kilometer asteroid crashing into the planet. Nothing special.
Right there.
Just an explosion equivalent to 5 billion tons of TNT. That's like 85 Tsar Bombas erupting at the same time. After this accident, scientists saw a new black spot the size of the Pacific Ocean that remained there for a very long time. If this asteroid had fallen in our actual Pacific Ocean, we'd have been swept away by mega tsunamis. It's about time to thank Jupiter for having these dangerous space rocks all to itself. Back in 1994, this gas giant already saved us from a real planet killer, Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9. Jupiter pulled the comet apart and didn't let it shower us with 22 fragments, with the largest of them being 2 kilometers in diameter. That's
pulled it.
4 times bigger than the asteroid spotted in 2009. Jupiter's atmosphere heated up to 30,000 degrees Celsius near the impact site. Only blue supergiants are known to have a temperature like this, and their radius is greater than the distance that Jupiter covers orbiting the Sun. What's more, the comet exploded with a flash, able to challenge the universe's brightest stars. For several months after the collision, we could see long dark blotches in Jupiter's clouds. They lingered
the
there
huge
despite
rocks.
all the active atmospheric currents. And before you start typing your thanks to the brave camera guys for doing such a fantastic job, let's first learn their names. The most powerful explosions on Jupiter were captured by robotic space probes Galileo and Ulysses. But if flashes occurring on this planet can be more blinding than the Sun, what may happen on the Sun itself in case of a space explosion? On July the 14th, 2000, France, as always, was celebrating its main national holiday, Bastille Day. However, apart from bright fireworks, there was also an invisible explosion up in the skies, and it
solar
definitely
flare
spoiled the festive mood. The thing is, on the holiday eve, a giant sunspot spewed a cloud of magnetized plasma right towards Earth. When it hit our planet's magnetic field, it triggered a major geomagnetic storm.
Holy.
In turn, this sparked power blackouts around multiple regions of France, leaving citizens unable to check the latest news and at least find out what happened.
Only
Battery-powered
France?
receivers didn't help much, as that geomagnetic storm disrupted even radio signals. The number of heart attacks and strokes
That only
increased
happened in
by
France?
90% on that dreadful day. But if I were to pick someone or something that suffered from the solar storm on Bastille Day the most, that would be Japan's astronomy mission called Advanced Satellite for Cosmology and Astrophysics. Magnetic disturbance damaged the onboard control system, and scientists didn't notice the catastrophic changes before it was too late. As a result, the costly mission was sent tumbling into orbit. Then, 3 years later, the Sun decided to freak astronomers out and unleashed a storm right on Halloween's Eve. We still don't know how powerful these solar flares actually were, since the equipment supposed to give us this information stopped at the maximum possible value and broke down. We can roughly imagine the force of
it was over 9,000.
the eruptions if we consider how fast magnetized plasma jets traveled from the Sun to Earth. The wait took them only 19 hours instead of the usual 2 or 3 days. Airports worldwide had to cancel hundreds of flights because of
It's crazy when you think about it that it takes 19 hours for for light or a flare to hit from the Sun to Earth. It's crazy to think that it takes 19 hours, that it takes that long, but it's all even more crazy to think that it only takes 19 hours for it to travel from the Sun to Earth. Crazy, crazy.
the geomagnetic storm. It also caused a system failure in Scandinavia, which led to widespread blackouts. Flows of charged particles significantly depleted our planet's ozone layer in the polar zones, and its recovery took 8 months. But the worst thing is that during the Halloween storms of 2003, several hospitals reported a sudden rise in child deaths, and no one knows why. Scientists believe that a relatively large explosion on the Sun may be the end of our civilization that depends on electronics so very much. However, deep and distant space may throw an apocalypse for us at absolutely any moment.
To be fair, an apocalypse could happen literally at any time because the volcanoes, there's like chains of volcanoes somewhere, I think near Japan, and if they decide to explode, it's gonna trigger chain reactions throughout the earth and we're gonna get fucked. As well as I think Yellowstone in the US, if that blows up, it's gonna create chain reactions and we're gonna get fucked.
Scientists often detect massive explosions outside our solar system, and they're hardly similar to anything we know. These bursts can only be compared to the Big Bang.
It's so
that let
cool,
the
but so
universe come
scary.
into being. In 1604, German astronomer Johannes Kepler saw something
That's a
extraordinary
satellite.
high in the skies. He saw a star in the constellation of Ophiuchus that hadn't been there before and carefully mapped it. Here it is, marked with the letter N. Kepler thought that he
What
got
is that?
lucky to witness the birth of a new bright star, but pretty soon it faded out. 4 centuries later, the Hubble Space Telescope captured only some peculiar clumps of matter in this part of the sky. The thing is, what Kepler saw was
I wonder how NASA knows where the telescope is. Like, if you look at an astronomy map, how do you know where? Oh, it's right there. For example, it's right there in Orion's belt. That's where the satellite is right now. I wonder how that works. It's interesting.
wasn't a birth of a star. That was a disastrous death of an old one. When a massive blue giant runs out of fuel, it doesn't only vanish, it explodes with the brightness of billions of suns visible throughout space. But even though now
And
we
it's
know what
pretty.
this phenomenon is, we keep calling these
Supernova.
blasts novas and supernovas, just like Kepler did. In truth, people had been noticing interstellar cataclysms before it, and they didn't even have any telescopes. Scientists assume that this cave painting found in India dates back to 3600 BC and depicts nothing less than a supernova explosion. I'll tell you more.
Just
Even
explosions.
The Star of Bethlehem could be a supernova. This means that these space blasts might have influenced humankind's history, and they may also put a stop to it. If a supernova
In what way
explodes
did it
in the Alpha
influence?
Centauri star system located 4.2 light years away from Earth, that will be a splendid light show. In a matter of days, the shockwave will basically reduce our planet to ashes. That's like detonating the world's nuclear warhead stockpile a few hundred times in a row. Luckily for us, there are no dangerous stars ready to become supernovas near Earth so far, and yet scientists occasionally detect such things in other galaxies. Over the last 20 years, Hubble captured 5 supernova explosions in a galaxy named NGC 5468.
That galaxy's
lies
fucked.
140 million light years away from Earth. The effects of the blast look impressive, even from
It
such
looks so
amazingly
cool.
long distances. This bubble
It's
is several
crazy.
times larger than the solar system, but aesthetic pleasure is not the main reason why scientists
Looks
keep
like art.
filming supernovas. A remarkable explosion occurred on the outskirts of this galaxy 70 million light years away from us. A white dwarf had been absorbing a neighboring star's matter until fusion reactions appeared on its surface. The subsequent explosion ejected matter into space at around 18,000 kilometers per second. This is 90,000 times faster than the speed of our jet planes. A flash 5 billion times brighter than the sun struck the universe.
Billion.
That's important. Type 1a supernovas like that always have roughly the same luminosity, which lets astronomers accurately measure distances in outer space and even calculate how fast the universe is expanding. In 2016, scientists first managed to record a unique and exotic consequence.
How smart, how big does your brain have to be able to comprehend calculating the expansion of the universe? Like, what? It's just insane.
Of a supernova explosion in the galaxy Centaurus A. This is the so-called light echo. Looks very
What is that?
similar to circles on water.
Uh-huh.
Astronomer Luis Galbani suggests that such waves carry carbon, iron, and heavy elements around space at high speed. And don't forget that we owe our physical
And then it
existence
hits
to
you.
these exact substances. But even the influence that supernovas have on the universe seems less profound when you learn about other space explosions.
There's
In
more.
1967, U.S. military satellites were closely watching the flares emerging on the planet's surface as a result of Soviet nuclear tests.
Oh,
And quite
okay.
unexpectedly, they picked up a signal coming from a surprising source, from space. That was a
Oh.
gamma ray burst. Just a couple of pixels on the tape,
The Hulk.
but they were enough to render astronomers speechless. If Americans would have sent someone close to the source to record it, the footage would have revealed a collision of black holes or neutron stars that produce narrow
What is-
emissions as bright as hundreds of supernovas. Experts witnessed one of the most powerful gamma ray bursts not so long ago,
GRB.
on October the 9th, 2022. And even though there are nearly 2.5 billion light years separating Earth from the explosion site, it affected us anyway. Nitrogen molecules in the upper atmosphere started splitting into ions.
Oh, it's because there's nothing that can stop momentum in space. So momentum that's created with the force of an explosion would just keep going and maybe increase in speed depending on gravity, I guess. So if nothing stops it from expanding, it will reach us, even though if it's billions of light years away. Oh, I hope I got that logic correct.
Under the influence of gamma rays. At the same time, critical failures appeared in radio navigation systems. If this deadly ray had hit Earth from inside our galaxy, the outcome would have been pretty devastating. Paleontologists suspect that 450 million years ago, a gamma ray burst caused the late Ordovician mass extinction. That was when, for some unknown reasons, more than 85% of living species suddenly died out.
Holy
Unfortunately,
shit.
unlike solar storms,
We
there's
just
no way
die.
to predict a lethal gamma ray burst as it flashes through space at the speed of light. It may be
Yeah.
that a frightening blast has already happened, and the consequences are currently on their way. And when they catch up with us, the half of Earth directly facing the blow would turn into one big photo film showing nothing except our imprinted shadows like those of Hiroshima.
It is
while
what it
we're
is.
Still alive, scientists are planning to watch one interstellar event live. Betelgeuse, a red supergiant, is about to turn into a supernova soon. By
Oh.
soon, I mean any moment in the next 100,000 years.
What the fuck?
A blink of an eye by the standards of astronomy. I'm not sure about you, but I would really want a picture of me standing against two suns.
In 100,000 years, would we be in space? Would we be living in space? Would we have space colonies in 100,000 years? I think it might be possible that there would be a city on a satellite between the Earth and the Moon. Yeah, I think it could be possible.
Shining in the background sky. That's exactly the effect Betelgeuse would bring once it becomes a supernova. And if we have to wait for another few thousand years, who knows? Maybe by that time, humans will find a way to send camera operators up there and get footage of space explosions. Would you like to get hired for this job?
Holy. The cyberpunk music. Explosions are scary, but they're so fascinating at the same time. I don't know. It's crazy. It's all crazy.